Hello and welcome to the second segment of the Glazov gang. Tonight's gang members: Ben Shapiro, noted author; Shari Goodman from Act for America, she's a chapter leader; and Rob Nelson, former Fox News host and author. All right, folks, let's get back to the action here. I want to move on to a topic that's near and dear to my heart, living here in Southern California. One of the few places, I believe, where people actually care about illegal immigration. I believe that this is the third rail of American politics, and I think that illegal immigration, it's shameful at this point. I listen to what people from Iran have to do to get to this country. I listen to what people from all over the world have to do to get to this country. And then I stop and think about how it seems like the Republicans want cheap labor and the Democrats want votes, and no one wants to talk about this, no matter how much it costs, the morality of it, and what we're going to do about illegal immigration. I think that this state and other states like Arizona have very serious issues, and I don't believe that anyone who doesn't live in a border town or a border state seems to even care. I'm struck that Mitt Romney doesn't want to talk about this as much as I'd like, and I'm very concerned about this being a third rail. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Ben Shapiro. What are your thoughts on illegal immigration as I'm putting it out there?
Well, I mean, I do think that it's clearly a third rail. I think that it's important to separate out the issue of the illegal immigrants from the issue of illegal immigration as a general matter. I mean, I think anybody who lives in a border state, especially in California, knows illegal immigrants, probably has hired illegal immigrants at some point. Most of them are here to work. Most of them are here to do real jobs and work hard. And I'm not going to begrudge. Listen, if I were living in Mexico, I would jump that border so fast it would make your head swim, because this is a fantastic country and that's a really crappy one. So, you know, I have nothing against illegal immigrants per se. What I do have a problem with is a United States that refuses to police its borders, because any country has to be in control of its borders, obviously, and make sure that the folks who are coming over are people who we want to be here and who are committed to becoming Americans in the fullest sense of the word. And I think that honestly, it should be a position that everyone here that everybody on both sides of the aisle should be able to agree on. The fact that it's not, it shows what a political third rail it is.
It is, and I want to touch on something. I think that Jan Brewer in Arizona has done this country a favor. I think the Supreme Court is going to uphold the Arizona law, and as I think it was Scalia indicated, hey, you know, states prosecute bank robberies. Why shouldn't the states prosecute illegal immigration? I'm going to go to Rob, and then I'm going to go to Shari. Rob, what are your thoughts on illegal immigration? I think we've got a serious, costly problem here.
I mean, I kind of, you know, to use the new buzzword in politics, evolved on this issue. And I actually agree with Ben. I was, you know, and I mentioned when I was on KBC, I talked all the time about illegal immigration. I just pounded on it and pounded on it because of the cost, because of the financial cost, for the number of the prisons that are the number of inmates in prisons in California. I'm saying, and the simple willingness to overlook it, the massive cost, and just everyone looks the other way. And I was really hard on it. And then after being off the radio, I actually started working with a high school in downtown, Inner City High School, and a lot of the kids have some, not most of them, there's a fair number of undocumented, whatever, kids there. Well, the kids aren't necessarily, but maybe their parents are, because they're. And I really realized there is a difference between illegal immigrants, people who are here illegally and working and trying to make it, you know, let these kids determined to get through high school and make a life for themselves, and illegal immigration. The fact that as a nation, we have completely stopped trying to control our borders or deal severely with people who, when they're here, have to be held to the same standard. Because my problem is how many people get held to a different standard. It's like if you're me and I'm driving around, don't have insurance and whatever.
You show your ID all the time.
And it's like, and you're just no insurance, no nothing, and that's a free pass. You end up in jail. You should be deporting your butt right back over the border with what I mean. It's like, don't lock them up and make us pay for it.
Rob, I'll tell you what.
We don't do it, and you know why we don't? Because I think, and we get to this later. No, I think there's this quiet agenda. So like this whole North American Union thing is not a conspiracy theory.
All right.
So like let it go in.
All right. Well, you know what? The interesting thing about this issue is there's only 62 million things to talk about. Shari, I want to turn it over to you. Yeah. The schools here are broke. The state has no money, but they never cut aid to illegals. Do you have health care?
Sure.
Do you have health care?
Yes.
Do you have health care? You're paying for whoever's on behind you is on the line behind you. However many illegals, you're paying because they have single payer health care in this country. It's for illegals. It's called walk into the emergency room and never see a bill. Shari, your thoughts.
First of all, I want to say I'm an immigrant. I came here at
Yeah.
the age of 10, but I'm illegal.
Oh, and by the way, there's people who want to drop the word illegal when they discuss.
Okay.
Nobody in their right mind has any problem with legal immigration.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think because language matters,
Yeah.
I think we need to stop calling them immigrants. They are invaders.
They're not invaders.
Without guns. Immigration is a process. And a country that cannot control its borders is no longer a sovereign country. We have a right, we have a duty to control those borders. And this is why I call them invaders. They did not get our permission to come here. And in the past, we used to have a system where people had to apply, people were screened for health care, they needed to be an asset to this country. We no longer ask, are these people an asset?
Shari, I'm gonna take this another step further. There isn't, I'm gonna just use the word liberal, there ain't a liberal alive who would overstay his visa in Japan and say, I want my children educated in English, I want welfare checks, I want to go to the emergency room and never pay, I never want to see a bill, I want all government benefits to flow to me. The Mexican government used to put out an illustrated pamphlet to show people how to take advantage of our welfare systems. We are not their welfare system.
But the problem is not, I have a problem when we start using the language to describe the immigrants themselves, because I don't, because my issue is not the immigrants, my issue is that the government is the one, the immigrants are not responsible for the enforcement. The government, hold on. The government, it's not about that. Hold on. It's the government has, you want to know why there's illegal immigration? There's illegal immigration for two specific reasons. One is that the United States government has decided they're going to provide tons and tons of benefits to people who come here illegally. And the second is that the federal government has decided they don't want to enforce the border.
That's right.
Neither of those things is the fault of the people who are coming across the border.
No, you're right about that.
Now, people who are coming across the border, you know, in the best of all possible worlds, would they stay where they are? Would they abide by American law? First of all, they're not bound by American law because they're not American citizens. Second of all, again, from a humanistic perspective, the most violent place on earth right now is Mexico. Mexico, there are places in Mexico that are more violent than Kandahar, right? I mean, if I were, I can't begrudge anyone trying to get into a great country. What I can begrudge is a federal government that refuses to do its job and incentivizes people to cross that border.
But we have an interest.
Of course.
The reason it's a process is because you do not want the infrastructure to break down. And consequently, what has happened here, especially in the state of California, is the infrastructure has broken down. When you do away with the process because of compassion, and believe me, I have compassion. I was on the other end. We do not make policy. We do not dictate policy because of compassion.
But no one's done away with the process because of compassion.
Ultimately, policy has to be made based on what is in the interest of the people in the United States.
Let's keep it quick because I want to get through the segment. I want to get to all of it.
I don't think anyone's done away with the rules because of compassion. It's not compassion. I think it's greed. I think it's greed. Yeah. It's cheap labor for big corporations. Many of them run by conservative right-wingers.
Well, not all of them.
I'm just making that as a joke. That was a bit of a joke. Hold on, let me take it back. Hold on. I was making a joke, okay?
No, you're making a good point. But
it is about greed.
You're right, it's about greed, but the truth is that the greed that it's really about is not the people who are greedy for cheap labor, because the fact is that the reason that people want cheap labor as a businessman, look, every businessman wants cheap labor regardless of political affiliation, because you're a businessman. You want to make a profit, you want to be able to hire workers at the price that they're willing to work for. The reason that you have such high illegal immigration is because minimum wage in places like California is incredibly high, and it's far higher than it would be justified by a free market system. So the issue here is twofold. The reason that the greed really is greed on the part of unions, which want high pay, but at the same time want illegal immigrants in the United States, and they want the Latino vote to continue to vote for Democrats who will then continue to fund union coffers. There is this sort of perverse triangle that goes on.
But the press and academia is motivated by compassion. And what drives those forces is there are special interest groups within this country that portray the compassionate angle. And that does have a deciding factor on how the media and how academia portray the what you call immigration. I call it, I don't want to call it immigration.
That's where you have to separate.
It's
where you have to separate the people from the process and the policy.
Okay, I'm going to say something on this note. On this note, I want to say something that's important. Romney spoke to this, and he was right. You have to start to deny benefits. they will begin to deport themselves. This is not laughable. No one has to be thrown onto a boat. Mexico's been sitting there for 236 years. How are they in the third world? I talk to Mexican people, they agree with me. How are you in the third world? And why is it that it's not okay for me to talk about illegal immigration? No one would go running. If Canada had to deal with 1,000 people a day walking across their border for 35 years, you'll find out how not progressive a country Canada is. I know Canada. They're a lot more conservative than you think. And I think that this whole thing where if you talk about illegal immigration, you're anti-Mexican, this is the first thing that has to dry up and die. That whole line of thinking has to dry up and die.
By the way, there are enough.
I gotta end the segment. We're gonna go into the third segment. Hold that thought. All right. Woo. I tell you, the sparks are flying. Folks, the Freedom Center has Arizona's Fight, America's Fight by Victor Davis Hanson and Ralph Peters. You really got to get some of these pamphlets. Go to frontpagemag.com, and we'll talk to you tomorrow during our third segment.